Picture this: a luxurious restaurant, dim lighting, soft jazz, the shimmer of a wine glass in a delicate hand. She smiles. Her companion meets her gaze with quiet confidence. Everything seems perfect, until it all falls apart in an instant. A phone vibrates. A single question. "Where are you right now?" And suddenly, her pulse quickens. Her husband is sitting at another table, watching, waiting. He's not here by accident. He knows everything. What happens next is a masterclass in deception, control, and cold-blooded strategy. A game where the stakes are high, and the wrong move could cost everything. But who will emerge victorious tonight? And just how far are they willing to go to keep the upper hand? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. The restaurant radiated an intimate charm, a haven softened by the gentle hum of jazz and the flickering glow of low-hanging lights. Each shadowy corner seemed to cradle hushed conversations, sheltering them from the outside world. Nina sat by the window, absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her wine glass, her gaze flickering between the candle's wavering flame and the man seated across from her. Gerald, recently introduced but already intriguing, offered a relaxed, self-assured grin that sent a spark of something electric through her. He had selected this discreet little spot, nestled away from the usual crowds, an unspoken promise of privacy. Or so she had believed. She had taken her time dressing for the evening, scrutinizing every detail in the mirror before stepping out. Appearance held power, and Nina wielded it well. When Gerald excused himself to visit the restroom, she instinctively adjusted a loose strand of hair, running a fingertip along the edge of her lips to confirm her lipstick remained pristine. A fleeting unease brushed against her thoughts. He had been gone longer than expected. Maybe she was overthinking it. Still, a faint chill laced through her spine. The sudden vibration of her phone against the polished table yanked her from her musings. She glanced down. The name flashing on the screen made her pulse stutter. William, her husband. The call was unexpected. He was supposed to be at work. Suppressing the instinctive jolt of panic, she composed herself, clearing her throat before answering with a smooth, light-hearted tone. "Yes, love?" William's voice came through steady, measured, yet something about it set her on edge. "Where are you right now?" A bead of sweat threatened to form at her temple, but she masked it with a soft chuckle. "Oh, you know me," she teased, keeping her tone effortlessly playful. "Out on a scandalous date." Letting the joke settle for just a moment, she quickly added, "Kidding, of course. Just meeting some old friends from the conservatory." Silence stretched across the line before William finally spoke, his words cool and deliberate. "That's funny. If it's a joke, I must be missing the punchline. Turn around, Nina." Her fingers tightened around the phone. Her heartbeat accelerated. Slowly, she twisted in her seat, scanning the dimly lit room. And then, she saw him. From a secluded table across the restaurant, William met her gaze with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. He raised a hand in a slow, deliberate wave. Her throat ran dry. Swallowing, she clutched the phone tighter, her voice dropping to a whisper. "William, what are you doing here?" His voice remained maddeningly even. "Change of plans. Thought I'd grab a bite to eat. Imagine my surprise when I happened upon my wife, deep in conversation with another man. Seemed like quite the intimate dinner." His words struck like a slap. Keeping her expression composed, she grasped for a response, something to regain control of the moment. "Wait, hold on. You think this is a date? That's ridiculous." Her eyes flickered past him then, registering the presence of another woman at his table, poised, professional, exuding quiet confidence. The realization dawned swiftly, and Nina seized the opportunity. "And you?" she countered, her voice smooth, sharp. "Sitting across from such a lovely companion. Who exactly is she?" William leaned back, a trace of amusement flickering in his gaze. "Oh, Nina," he said, his tone light. "Meet Viviana. My lawyer." The words hit with a quiet, cutting force. A tight smile pulled at the corners of Nina's lips, but deep within, something twisted. No. She wouldn't allow William and his lawyer to dictate the terms of this moment. Lifting her chin, she inhaled deeply, rising to her feet with an effortless grace. Each step she took across the polished floor was measured, deliberate, her heels clicking a steady rhythm. Reaching their table, she slid into an empty seat, flashing a disarming smile. "Viviana, is it?" she greeted, her voice velvety smooth, acknowledging the woman with an easy nod. Viviana returned the gesture, her expression poised, unreadable. Nina wasted no time. Shifting her attention to William, she let her voice drip with saccharine curiosity. "So, darling, what's this about? Should I be concerned that my husband is having dinner with a lawyer? Something I ought to know?" William studied her for a lingering moment before exhaling, shaking his head slightly, his amusement barely concealed. "Well, Nina," he said, his voice slow, casual. "Let's just say I find myself in an unfortunate predicament. A bit embarrassing, really." He took a measured sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving hers. "Never thought I'd need legal counsel, but here we are. Just hoping I'm not being prepped to wear reindeer antlers this holiday season." Heat crept into her cheeks, but her composure held. Tilting her head slightly, she let out a soft laugh, swiftly pivoting the moment back into her control. "How dreadful," she cooed, then turned to Viviana, her tone laced with subtle mockery. "What do you think, Viviana? A husband who's supposed to be working late, yet instead, he's keeping tabs on his wife. A little paranoid, wouldn't you say?" Viviana remained unfazed, her smile practiced, her voice smooth. "Oh, Nina," she replied with a pleasant air, "life is full of surprises. That's why I'm here, to help people navigate those unexpected twists." Nina chuckled softly, but inside, she was recalibrating. "A divorce lawyer, then?" She turned back to William, her expression unwavering. "Darling, I'd hate to think you're making hasty decisions over something as innocent as catching up with an old friend. That would be quite impulsive, don't you think?" William regarded her for a long moment before setting his glass down, his movements slow and deliberate. A knowing smile curved his lips. "You know me, Nina. I don't act on impulse. I take my time, consider all my options carefully." Leaning forward slightly, his gaze locked onto hers, pinning her in place. "So, why don't you tell us about Gerald? Is he just a friend, or something more?" Nina didn't flinch. Her smile remained effortlessly in place. "William, please. I've already explained. Gerald is an old friend from the conservatory. A brilliant pianist, truly." She shrugged, her voice light and easy. "We happened to cross paths and decided to catch up. What better place than a setting like this, discussing music?" The words fell into place smoothly, polished to perfection. But beneath the surface, the real game had only just begun. "You know how it is. Creative people like us, musicians, artists, we have a tendency to be a little more expressive. It just comes with the territory." William lifted an eyebrow, a quiet chuckle slipping past his lips. "Well, in that case, I'll just have to hope his hands stay where they belong, on the piano keys." Nina laughed, waving a hand dismissively. "Viviana, you might want to take note. Your client here enjoys stirring the pot." She smirked. "Really, William, that's quite the bold insinuation." Viviana, who had been watching the exchange with mild detachment, simply shrugged. William's amusement lingered, though a glimmer of something more serious crept into his expression. "So, Nina," he said, his voice even but pointed, "you're telling us that you and Gerald are just friends? Strictly platonic? Nothing more?" Nina's gaze flicked between William and Viviana before settling back on William, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "William, we're friends. That's it. No hidden meaning, No romantic entanglements? She paused for effect, then added with a knowing grin. Unless, of course, Viviana here believes that bonding over music somehow constitutes betrayal. Nina chuckled lightly, glancing at Viviana, who merely smiled, shaking her head. "Oh, I wouldn't go that far," Viviana replied smoothly. "I think I can handle this without causing a scene." William smirked, clearly entertained. He enjoyed watching Nina deflect so effortlessly, sidestepping each probe with ease. Leaning back, he crossed his arms. "All right, sweetheart, but I'd be very interested in hearing Gerald's take on this friendship of yours." Nina held her chin high, unwavering. "Of course, William," she said. "I have no doubt Gerald will back me up when he gets here." She cast a quick glance toward the door, her smile faltering just slightly. Not sure what's keeping him, though. Her grip tightened ever so slightly around her glass. Before anyone could respond, William leaned back in his chair, casually pulling out his phone and tapping the screen. "Nina," he said smoothly, "there's no need to wait for Gerald. He'll show up eventually, but I thought you might want to hear his thoughts right now." He lifted the phone slightly, his expression unreadable. As it turned out, William had already spoken with Gerald, cornered him in the restroom, in fact. A little man-to-man conversation. And William had come prepared. With a tap, the recording began to play. Nina and Viviana exchanged quick, wary glances, bracing for what was coming. First came William's voice. "Hey man, that redhead over there, your friend?" Gerald's laugh was easy, a little too relaxed. "You could say that," he replied. "Why? What's it to you?" William kept his tone light, casual. "I've always been impressed by guys who make it look effortless. Getting women's attention, I mean. Got any advice? Doesn't come as naturally to me." Gerald chuckled, the sound thick with smugness. "Ah, man," he said. "I don't know if that's something you can teach. Some of us just have the gift, you know." William's tone shifted just slightly, still casual but probing now. "Hey, I've heard redheads have a reputation for being wild. That true? You two ever, you know?" Gerald didn't miss a beat. He laughed, the sound laced with pride. "Oh man, wild doesn't even begin to cover it." William pressed on. "That one? She's something special, huh?" Gerald exhaled a short, satisfied laugh. "Let's just say if I'm not careful, she might wear me out. She's got energy for days." A brief silence stretched before William finally responded. "Wow. Lucky you." Gerald chuckled again, his tone dripping with self-satisfaction. "Lucky? Yeah, you could call it that. Just hoping she doesn't completely drain me tonight, if you catch my drift." The recording ended. William had apparently wrapped up their little chat with a polite goodbye, and, as an added touch, ensured Gerald would have some extra time to reflect by conveniently propping the restroom door shut behind him. No interruptions. The restaurant's ambient noise swelled, filling the thick silence at the table. Nina's cheeks colored, her fingers tightening around her drink. But after a short pause, she straightened her posture, clearing her throat, forcing herself to remain composed. Viviana's keen eyes darted between them, taking in every subtle reaction with practiced precision. William, on the other hand, simply watched Nina, amusement flickering in his gaze, waiting. Nina forced a smile, though a slight tremor betrayed her. "William," she started, struggling for her usual smoothness. "Gerald was just, showing off. Guys talk big when they're trying to impress each other. He was obviously just joking around." William lifted an eyebrow, his lips curling into a slow, knowing smile. "Joking, huh? Seemed awfully specific for a joke. But go on, Nina. I'm listening." She let out a small, breathy laugh, though the heat in her face lingered. "William, seriously," she said, striving for steadiness. "Gerald's a talker. He likes to exaggerate, spin wild stories. The guy thrives on making things sound bigger than they are. He probably thought he was just being funny." She turned toward Viviana, seeking some form of backup. "Viviana, come on." Are we really going to take the word of some guy who can't keep his mouth shut as proof of anything? That's ridiculous. People say all kinds of things when they're trying to sound impressive. Viviana's expression remained neutral, unreadable. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. The conversation wasn't over yet. She offered Nina a restrained smile, a flicker of amusement dancing in her eyes. I think I've seen enough for one night, Nina. This isn't really my kind of crowd, but I do appreciate William inviting me. It was certainly illuminating, she said, her head tilting slightly in William's direction. Nina's jaw tightened, her retort forming on her lips, until she caught sight of Gerald standing nearby, his expression frazzled, his gaze darting nervously around the room. William's voice remained courteous as he noted, "Looks like your friend has made his way back, Nina. He seems to be looking for you." The moment she heard that, Nina turned and called out to Gerald, who wasted no time rushing over, his movements quick and agitated. He ignored William and Viviana entirely, blurting out, "Nina, you're not gonna believe this." Frustration colored his voice as he continued. "Some moron jammed the bathroom door shut. Hemi was stuck in there forever." His eyes scanned the room before zeroing in on William, suspicion flashing across his face. "It was you, wasn't it? What the hell is your problem?" William merely raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a faintly amused smile. Nina, however, turned to Gerald with a pleading look. "Gerald, let me introduce you. This is William, my husband. Maybe you'd like to explain to him that you're just—" Her sentence faltered as realization dawned on Gerald. His face drained of color, his eyes widening in sheer horror. "Oh, hell," he choked out, barely above a whisper. "I just remembered. I think I left my phone ringing." He nodded awkwardly, not waiting for a response before bolting toward his table. In a blur of movement, he grabbed his belongings and made a beeline for the exit, vanishing from the restaurant without a second glance. Nina remained frozen, her lips parted slightly, a mixture of disbelief and fury flickering in her gaze. William exhaled a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Nina, your friend may be entertaining, but when push comes to shove, he's not exactly reliable." He cast a brief look between Viviana and Nina before adding, "Anyway, I think it's about time we settle up and call it a night." Viviana stood, nodding as she collected her things, while William rose as well, sparing Nina one last look. "Oh, and sweetheart," he added with a wry smirk, "you'll be covering dinner with Gerald out of your own pocket." Nina's jaw clenched, but she forced herself to remain composed. She signaled for the waiter and reached for her card, gripping it tightly. However, when the waiter ran it through the machine, he hesitated before frowning. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's been declined." As those words left his mouth, William and Viviana were already making their way toward the exit. Nina spun around sharply, her voice laced with irritation. "William, my card isn't working. Did you do this? Are you really leaving me here like this?" William barely slowed, casting a glance over his shoulder, his smirk almost sympathetic. "I didn't think it'd be an issue, Nina. I assumed your dear friend would handle it." Her nostrils flared, her tone dropping into a sharp whisper. "Damn it, William. You're seriously just walking out on me?" His smirk deepened. "Come on, Nina. You've always been good at improvising. I'm sure you'll figure something out." With that, he strode out, Viviana easily keeping pace beside him. As they stepped outside, Viviana turned to William. "I'll have the paperwork finalized first thing in the morning." William exhaled, nodding slightly. "Thanks, Viviana." Without another word, he set his gaze forward, leaving the night behind. Inside the restaurant, Nina stood motionless, staring at the bill, the weight of the evening pressing down on her. Back at home, William moved through the house with slow, deliberate steps, the exhaustion of the evening settling over him. He packed a few essentials into a suitcase, his motions steady, unhurried. He'd clear out the rest in the morning. Tonight, a few nights at his brother's place would do just fine. Barely an hour had passed when the front door burst open. Nina stormed in, fury burning in her eyes. She tossed her purse onto the nearest surface with a resounding thud and marched straight toward him. "William, what the hell was that?" she snapped. "Did you really need to turn this into a spectacle? Bringing your lawyer? Setting me up? Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" Her voice climbed with every word, frustration spilling over. "And leaving me with no way to pay? Do you know what they said to me? They were ready to make me wash dishes, hell, even scrub toilets. Thank God Bridget was there to bail me out." William let out a dry, humorless chuckle, not from amusement, but from sheer exhaustion. It was an old habit of his, laughing under pressure, but it only fueled Nina's anger further. "What the hell is so funny?" she demanded, her hands clenching into fists. William lifted a hand, steadying his voice. "Nina," he said slowly, "remind me, what instrument do you play?" She blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected question. "What? What does that have to do with anything? You know I play the flute, William." His smile twisted, amusement laced with something colder. "Then maybe you should go find your little boyfriend and try playing the skin flute instead." He gave a mock bow, his voice dripping sarcasm. "Might be a better fit for you. Now do me a favor, leave me alone." Nina's face went scarlet, her hands trembling with rage. "William, you bastard. Are you serious? You humiliate me in front of everyone, and now this? You want a divorce? You're throwing everything away over some dumb joke Gerald made? This is ridiculous." William felt a pang deep in his chest, but he refused to waver. "Nina," he said quietly, his tone final, "there was a time I loved you. And maybe, just maybe, you loved me too. We were something once." He exhaled, shaking his head. "But now? Now it's clear none of this matters to you anymore. So, this is it. I'm getting a divorce because, apparently, my wife has a soft spot for pianists." The statement landed like a blow, and Nina's expression twisted with fury. Without a second thought, she snatched up her purse and hurled it at him, her aim sharpened by rage. "Go to hell, William! Don't you dare talk to me like that!" Her voice shook, but the fire in her eyes remained steady. William's jaw clenched, the last remnants of his patience wearing thin. He didn't bother arguing. Instead, he slung his sports bag over his shoulder, took one final look at her, and gave a sharp, almost derisive nod before walking out, leaving nothing but silence in his wake. The following morning, Nina opened the door to find Viviana standing there, a thick stack of papers in her hands. Her expression darkened as Viviana extended the documents toward her. Without hesitation, Nina snatched them up, her grip tightening as if she could crush the reality they carried. Viviana's composed demeanor only fueled her defiance. Losing had never been an option for Nina. She had built her life on always being a step ahead, calculating, prepared, unshakable. The moment Viviana walked away, Nina went into action. By midday, she had already secured one of the city's top divorce attorneys and set her strategy in motion. Her approach was simple: frame William as an insecure, controlling husband who let his jealousy spiral into delusion. As far as he knew, all he had caught her doing was sharing a meal with Gerald. Just a colleague, another musician. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that justified this level of betrayal. At least, that's what she told herself. But as she replayed the events in her mind, an uneasy feeling crawled up her spine. How had William even found out about Gerald? She had been careful, meticulous. No texts left unsent, no receipts unaccounted for. Had she made a mistake? Overlooked something? The more she combed through her memory, the less she found. Pushing aside her doubt, she focused on what mattered most: winning. This would be over soon, and she'd walk away unscathed. When the trial day arrived, Nina sat beside her attorney, exuding quiet confidence. They had built a solid case. William, they would argue, was nothing more than an irrational, jealous husband who had let paranoia cloud his judgment. But as the proceedings unfolded, cracks began to form in her carefully constructed defense. William's lawyer stepped forward with something she hadn't anticipated: damning evidence. A stack of printed screenshots taken directly from her phone, exposing conversations with Gerald that shattered any illusion of innocence. The messages left nothing to interpretation, laying bare the truth she had hoped would stay buried. Her stomach tightened, and a low curse escaped her lips. William's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "You went through my phone? That's a complete violation of privacy." But it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done, and William wasn't finished. His final move was a witness. Their elderly neighbor, a retired man from across the street, took the stand. He testified without hesitation that he had seen Gerald coming over late at night when William was working his overnight shifts. Nina's lawyer scrambled to poke holes in the testimony, but the damage was irreversible. The foundation of her defense crumbled, leaving nothing but the harsh, undeniable truth. By the time the judge delivered the ruling, the outcome was evident. William had won. After the proceedings, Nina caught up with him in the courthouse hallway, her demeanor softer than it had been in weeks. Stepping in front of him, her voice carried a hesitant plea. "William, please, can we talk? It doesn't have to end like this. I know I messed up, but we had something real. Isn't there any way to fix this?" But his face remained unreadable, his voice calm yet resolute. "Nina, this isn't just about mistakes. You lied. And even now, you're trying to spin the truth." He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "I loved you. But betrayal? That's not something I can forgive." Nina's expression faltered as she watched him walk away, leaving her alone with the consequences of her choices. The game she had tried to play had finally caught up with her, and now all she had left was the weight of her own actions. This story has come to an end. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, and playing games in relationships often leads to losses on both sides. Nina thought she could manipulate the truth, but in the end, the truth had its own way of surfacing. William, though hurt, showed that dignity and self-respect matter more than holding on to something toxic. In love and in life, honesty is not just a virtue, it's the foundation of everything. Lies may buy time, but they never buy happiness. The real lesson? Play fair, or be ready to lose it all. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.